Now everyone knows about the Ford F-150 Platinum, but I bet you didn't know about this Platinum. This is the Ford Everest Platinum. It's the range-topping model of this SUV that's based off the same chassis as the Ford Ranger. Now before I start this review, make sure you go to productreview.com.au. Over there you can review your very own car and you can tell other Aussie buyers exactly what it's like to own your car. So this is the most expensive Ford Everest you can buy because this will set you back $77,530 as a starting price compared to the entry-level Ford Everest, which will set you back $53,290. So let's see if it's worth the extra cash. Now, the most expensive Ford Everest comes with a platinum badge here up the front with satin chrome around the grille. You've also got LED daytime running lights and LED headlamps, and you've got some fog lamps down below. Personally, I see a lot of influence from the F-150 up front. Now you can see here, this car doesn't have the 21-inch wheels. Instead, this is a no-cost option to get the off-road ready 18-inch wheels with all-terrain rubber, which is a better option if you prefer a bit more comfort when you're going off-road. Now you get a V6 badge along the side here, you have another platinum badge down below, we have a side step here, and we have some roof rails on top. Now you've also got keyless entry and exit, and you've also got coil springs at the back instead of leaf springs like you'd find on the Ford Ranger. Now at the back we have some cool looking LEDs with the word platinum encased in this rear plastic. Looks quite nice. We have our rear tow hitch down here as well, and you have a full-size spare underneath. Now this has a power tailgate, which is extremely useful, and you can also open and close it by just wiggling your foot underneath the rear bumper. Now this car is a 3-row SUV, and to get that third row up, you can just press these buttons here at the back and your seats will automatically fold up. Now once they're up, you have a lot less boot space, so if you need to get that back, you can press those buttons again and it will fold those seats flat. Now the second row folds flat as well in a 60-40 split, which was a little disappointing because I thought for a big SUV like this, it would have been better if you could just independently fold down that middle seat, which you can't inside the Everest. But then at least in the back you have not just one but two 12-volt sockets to power anything you need when you're out in the great outdoors. Yeah, okay, so what was a big surprise is how spacious this third row is for adults like me. I'm 5'11" and I actually have decent amounts of feet room, not much knee room, and my head is very close to the ceiling, but I wouldn't be uncomfortable back here for shorter trips, and then I can adjust these pretty large headrests up to get nice and comfortable and have plenty of support if I need it. Now, if it's getting especially hot, I have some independent air vents back here, which are very useful to use, and I do have some cup holders in the back. And so the answer is yes, this car will fit adults in the third row, and it means that the passengers in the middle won't have to sacrifice much comfort to make sure these passengers are comfortable. However, the second row is where most of the comfort is found for the passengers. Here in the back, I have platinum floor mats, I have plenty of toe room, plenty of knee room thanks to some sculpting in the seats, and I have decent amounts of headroom as a 5'11" adult. Now I can adjust the fan speed here in the back for the climate control, and I also have rear heated seats, which is quite useful. There's two USB ports in the back, one USB Type-C and one USB Type-A. Now I have access to a center armrest here, which really only houses some small cup holders, not a bunch of storage to be found there. Now this middle seat isn't too bad. It's nice and wide. This leather feels so nice. So it's very comfortable, but yes, this would be used for shorter trips, and I wouldn't really recommend it for too long of a trip. So let's talk about the servicing and warranty. When you buy this car, you'll get a 5-year unlimited kilometer warranty, and then servicing is every 12 months or every 15,000 kilometers. And that means over 5 services, this thing's going to cost you $1,666, which is a pretty good price for a large SUV like this that has a 4x4 system and a big turbocharged V6 diesel under the hood. But then you're wondering, is this car safe for me and my family? Well, yes it is, because it scored a 5 out of 5 in Australia's ANCAP safety rating system. My 3 favorite safety features in here include the 360-degree camera, which is not only good for parking, but it's also good for when you're going off-road. I also do like the autonomous emergency braking up front, which is really useful and nice and active, and it's good to have just in case of an emergency. And then also I found the active lane keep assist in this car works really nice, and it's always attentive, which I found very useful. Now, of course, the creature comforts up front are just awesome for this car at this price point, and you'd hope so as well if you're spending this much money. So you're looking at this giant vertical screen here, which we've seen in the range, and I've already tested it out, and I thought it's been a very impressive unit. It's a little bit laggy, but to be honest, the features that are packed in here, like wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and even stuff like having a sketch pad and all that sort of stuff, is all very useful. Access to things like climate control is all very easy, as well as just jumping into different media settings and actual settings in the car. Now, what I really love on the Platinum is that it doesn't get that old school LCD display that you got on the lesser ranges. Here, instead, we're getting the same display you saw straight out of the Ford Ranger Raptor, which is so great. It has awesome animations and plenty of clarity and response, and I love how this looks, and it really makes this whole range of cars feel just leagues above what the competition are doing. Now, it's easy to get comfortable in these Platinum seats. These are very comfortable leather seats, and I found that through all the seats in this cabin. I just really love the materials and cushioning they've done inside this car. Now, there's also plenty of white stitching up front as well, and yes, that glass roof does make an impact even for the front occupants in terms of bringing in extra lighting. Now, I'd like how there's a Platinum badge over on the left to remind you, yes, you are driving the top of the range Everest, and they really honed that in. There are so many Platinum badges on this car. Now, this car also has wood trim, and I can't really tell if it's real or not. It sort of feels a bit plasticky, but nonetheless, I really like how it looks. And Ford have done a really good job of eliminating most of the gloss black plastics in here, which I found to be very nice to not have to stare at a bunch of fingerprints or scratches. Now, the wireless charging pad is very useful. However, do be warned, if you are using a wireless Apple CarPlay or Android connection to your screen, your phone will get very hot if you keep it in the wireless charger. Now, I'm a big fan of how this car drives. This V6 is nice and responsive, but it's not super quick, so that's just something to keep an eye on. It's nice to have 600 Newton meters under your right foot, and it just means that overtakes and going at low speeds is all a really easy effort. There's no need to sort of dig really deep to get the turbo spooled and get that torque built up. Now, cornering in this car on the road is quite interesting. Now, you'd expect it to have lots of body roll, and it sort of does. Of course it has to, because it's so high off the ground, but it's not as bad as you might think. Now, cornering through this corner, for example, we're going to be going through at a reasonable pace, and the car really does hold up. Where the weak points start to show is actually these optional off-road tires. They don't like to grip all that much on these corners, and they do squeal a bit if you do push them a bit too far. So if you are predominantly driving on the road, you're probably going to be better off with a set of road tires on this car. But if you are finding yourself going off-road often, then I think the all-terrains do a fine job as long as you know where the limit is. Now, there's no paddle shifters here to change through your own gears, and I really do like this shifter in here. It looks quite nice, except there's buttons to go through this 10-speed automatic transmission. Now, you can press the manual mode and start shifting that way, and it's really just to help you get into your desired gear. It's really not for driving fun. But I appreciate the fact that there are no cheap plastic paddles to ruin the effect and feel of this car. Now, there's no heads-up display in this car, which, you know, just feels a little out of place for a car that's got this much technology, but you know, most cars in this class actually don't have that. Now, what I found very shocking is that this car has great sound isolation. There's a ton of sound deadening in here, and you have no clue it's based on a ute. It makes it really easy to have calm and quiet conversations. Kids will not be disturbed by any road noise or engine sound, and you can even have just normal conversations over the phone or to your passengers without having to scream over the top of any excessive road noise. Now, in addition, the Platinum model of the Everest gets these Bang & Olufsen speakers, which do sound very nice. Now, this car has four-wheel drive on by default when you're on the road. A bit of a weird thing to hear if you're used to driving these cars, which usually are only rear-wheel drive when you're driving on the road and only are suitable for putting into four-wheel drive modes when you're on the off-road tracks. So if you have it in four-wheel drive automatic, it will send power to the wheels that need it most, which is really cool to have and just makes this thing feel far more like a traditional SUV when you're driving on the road. And look, the brakes feel fine in this car. They're a little spongy, but they do the job very well, especially when you have autonomous emergency braking in case you need the car to brake for you before you can even react. And the driving aids when you're driving out on the road are great. So I found radar cruise control to work really well, but I had to turn off automatic speed sign recognition because I found the car to just pick up random speed signs when you're out on the highway, which was a bit annoying because it adjusts the speed of the car. So I did turn that off, but the rest of the systems worked quite well. But now it's time to explore what the Everest does best, and let's go explore some off-road trails. Now that we're off-road, I'm going to select a drive mode that's suitable for this terrain. So I can go through and choose between normal, eco, tow and haul, but now we're looking at slippery conditions, we've got mud ruts, and we've also got sand. I would say this is more slippery conditions because it's not exactly a paved road. Now cruising through here, I'm going to try out the hill descent control. So I press this off-road button here in the center console and it'll pop up with an off-road menu, which shows us a forward-facing camera, where our wheels are and where the edges of our car exist, which is quite useful. And then we have two options here. We can put on hill descent control and we can also control our rear diff locker. Now using hill descent control, this car does a really good job of just immediately working when you put it on. And then you can just sort of cruise through here and really find it to be nice and smooth, and you can easily adjust it using your cruise control buttons here on the steering wheel. Now I have my pitch and roll little dial put up here on the center display and also in the driver's display, just to give me a better idea of where the extremes of our car are. So it will tell you if you're going to be too close to rolling over or if you're pitching too far forwards or backwards, which I think is quite useful. Now we're going to go through some little ruts here, which is going to be quite interesting, but away we go. We do have some side steps on this car, which is really annoying if you want extra clearance, but they don't seem to be impacting our performance off-road just yet. And then that hill descent control will just carry us through, and it's flawless. So I've brought a few other cars through this track, especially something like the Land Rover Discovery, which is another 7-seater off-road SUV, except that car is a unibody construction, where this is a body on frame. So it's a bit more old school in terms of its approach to how SUVs used to be built. And I have to say, this is one of the most composed rides I've had through here. I just feel like the underneath of this car is doing all the work and I'm sitting on top. I can feel a little bit more than I would in a more luxury orientated and more expensive SUV, but to be honest, I just feel like I've got complete control, and I love how we're doing this all with a lot of luxury features in here as well, so I don't feel like I'm in something just like a bit compromising, like a base model 4x4. Now as we cruise up through here, ground clearance is not an issue. We're just hitting a few rocks here, traction's sort of lighting up a little bit, but yeah, too easy. This is just mincemeat for a car like this. This car can be pushed way harder than I'm pushing it right now, but it's a good idea as to how capable and how comfortable this car is off-road. Now we're going to cruise through here through a tighter section. What I love is the smaller footprint of this vehicle. It's not super wide or super long, so it just makes it easy to go through tight sections of off-road track like this. Now I'm finding the suspension to be really composed. It's not throwing me around at all, and even with some tough little rocks in the way, it's not getting too upset, where I found some other cars in this segment to get a little bit upset and sort of tilt around just a little bit too much for my liking, where this is just keeping nice and flat and giving me plenty of confidence through these off-road sections. Oh. Now, this is just reinforcing how important it is to opt for the 18-inch wheels instead of the 21s. I just think you're not going to get the same composure in this car if you're going for the 21-inch wheels, even though they might look a little bit better to some. Personally, I like the off-road tires because they just look a bit more suitable for a car named the Everest. Now, as we approach this little rock shelf here, I'm just reminded about how comfortable this car is. It was comfortable touring to my filming location, and then it's been comfortable cruising off-road here. And some of these cars make me pucker up a little bit when I'm off-roading because they sort of make me feel like, oh, we're a bit top heavy. This car does the complete opposite. I feel very comfortable in here, and it's a great off-road option if you're looking for one. Now, I really want to buy a Ford Bronco, but they don't sell them here in Australia. So instead, we get this. And the Ford Everest Platinum makes me feel like a Ford Bronco and a Ford F-150 Platinum had a baby and they made this. I wasn't expecting to be this impressed by this car, but here I am saying exactly that. It's quiet, it's comfortable, it's powerful, it's capable off-road, and it has plenty of space and features that makes this quite the package. Now, there are better driving road-focused SUVs at this price point, but this is the complete package if you know you're going to be heading off-road. Hence why I would say you should buy it with these 18-inch wheels. So here I am placing my imaginary crown right here on the bonnet. Here you have the best car in this body-on-frame 7-seater SUV segment. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.